right now.
All right, so the time is now 7:04 p.m. Wednesday, June 10th, 2020. I'd like to call the Accessibility Advisory Committee for the Town of Aurora meeting to order. First item up is the approval of the agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
Joanne gives you the motion.
Joanne, second by
Matthew.
Matthew. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the agenda? I'd like to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. So number 2 is the declarations of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof. Are there any declarations at this time? Going once, going twice. All right, on to number 3, receipt of the minutes. I have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of March 11th, way back to March 11th, 2020. Moved by anyone?
Matthew.
Second by
Rochelle.
Rachel. Okay.
Rochelle, yeah.
Yeah, Rochelle. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Delegations. We have no delegations this evening, I don't think. None. All right, so matters for consideration. So we'll look at the first agenda item that we have to consider. Matt, can you take us away on that?
Sure. So the first one that we have up here is the application is SPEX 2020-03. And this is actually a location that you guys are all very familiar with. It's actually just at the Superstore Plaza. And so what this application basically coming through is I'm sure all of you guys have seen the garden center that they usually place up at Superstore. And so basically the application was just a temporary piece. Nothing permanent is being added in. So this one is going to be relatively simple. If you guys have had an opportunity to take a look at the site plan, it's going to be in the same east area of the lot. For those of you that don't know Superstore, the storefront is on the north side. Their whole lot is on the south side. And so the east part of it over there, they usually section off a small area for the garden center. So for the comments that we really can put over here, it's quite limited, to be honest, because like I said, it's a temporary piece being put in over there. So the 2 that I have just put in for consideration for Superstore to kind of put into motion here is just temporary barrier-free parking spots to be kind of located close to the tent. And so they can just use up, like similar to what we do usually at our special events, is just put up temporary barrier signs indicating barrier-free spots available for residents coming in to use that specific area. And the second piece that I allocated in there, as we know, we're mostly focused on public design of space, outdoor stuff. And so I was just mentioning for any of the laneways that they're creating in the garden center to just make sure that they have the 1.5 meter width allocated, just so that residents, whether they're using wheelchairs or any kind of accessible equipment, are able to flow through very easily through the center that they've provided. But I haven't added in more comments past that because, like I mentioned, it's temporary and we're going to be quite limited in terms of what we can even provide as a consideration. But I'm all ears, obviously, for the committee. I may have missed some pieces over there. So if anyone has any additional feedback they'd like to add in, I'm all ears.
One thought I had is if they put a temporary barrier-free parking spot, could we recommend that they use 2 regular spots to make up 1 barrier-free parking spot just so clients can use the regular space that free parking was accommodate.
So you cut off for me there, Max, but I think I got the gist of what you were saying over there. And I think that might be a trend that we experience over the Zoom meetings. But anyway, what Max was mentioning, and correct me if I'm wrong, Max, was just that we recommend that they actually put two spots together in order to justify the one accessible spot. And that is a good point, actually. So just so everyone's aware, there's two types of barrier-free parking spots that we normally advocate based on our zoning bylaw. So there's type A spots, there's type B spots. The type A spots would be 3.65 meters in width. So those are usually those large spots, and that doesn't include the accessible aisle with the little indicators next to it. And there's type B spots, which are 2.7 meters, which is the typical spot we would see in any regular parking spot. So to your point, Max, I'm okay with recommending that they put maybe two spots together in order to have one type A spot, and then we'll just keep any other spots next to it as the type Bs. And then that way we have at least two of, or we have one of each in this case. So that is a good point. I'll write that down.
Any other comments?
You.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Max. Okay, any other comments?
No.
So can I get a motion to receive this as information, please? Max,
You want a mo-
seconder,
Rochelle.
Rochelle? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? So motion carries to receive, and comments as well. Matt, can we go to item number 2?
Yep. So Ashita, do you want to throw that up on the screen for me quickly? So the second, so this was, I believe, the additional item, correct, Ashita, that we added in. It's not actually on the agenda.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So for those of you that are following along on their screens, this would be the secondary piece. It's not just in your agenda. You actually have to pull it off the site as a separate file. The reason being, it is quite large. So this is actually a new tower that's going to be being placed up on Leslie Street. And so it's going to be residential, and it's going to be about 7 stories. This is the one I was mentioning a little bit earlier that we're going to have some difficulty, I think, with taking a look at the site. It is quite detailed as you go through the different pages. And so it'll be difficult to zoom in, but we'll try our best. When Ashita puts the actual site plan on there, we'll see how well it zooms in for her, and hopefully we can go through it. I've made comments already in advance, but we'll go through them as we have it in front of us. So Ashita, if you don't mind just throwing up that first drawing, that would be great.
Sure, in a minute.
And John, I don't know if you noticed, but Haley did join in as well. I can see her there.
Okay.
I apologize. This file is loading. Just a minute, please.
Yeah, I knew it.
Okay, Matt, Do you think we can come back to item 2? It's just taking a little time, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's
John?
fine. I'm okay with that. Just
If that's okay with the committee members. Sorry, it's just taking a little time to load.
Yep.
If we can come back to that and we can, I'll get it up on the screen in the meantime. It's just a large file, so it's taking a long time to load, even scrolling through it.
Yep. So John, if you want to bring item 3 to the table
Item
and
3.
just get approval, and then we'll go through with that.
So item number 3 is 1540 Wellington Street East. So Matt, I guess you're more familiar with this. It's not a big one, I don't think, although there's some challenges, I think.
Yep.
Want-
So is she able to put this one on?
Yes, just about to.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so this location is on Wellington Street. It's actually on the way to the 404 Plaza. So right next, I think it's the Mr. Lube. So we have the gas station. I think it's a Mr. Lube over there. So this is actually going to be the lot size right next to that. So they're putting in, I think it's 3 different plazas. And so for those of you that have seen that area, it is very, very sloped. So I've actually been working with the planners on this one for quite a while, even before actually this draft one came up, because the staff members were approaching me with their concerns, which was great to see. So I'm going to use the compass here, so I hope you guys are all okay with that. So the back lot is going to be the north side, and then where all the parking is the south side. So that way everyone is just able to orient themselves for this specific piece. They've done a good job, in my opinion, of at least laying out the accessible parking. We have 3 different buildings, all at 3 different grades. So on the west side, you'll see that we have a ramp with an accessible aisle and a spot. In the middle, you'll notice that we have an accessible spot with an exterior path of travel into the 3rd, what is it called? Shop that's going to be put in over there. And then obviously on the very east side, we have a 3rd accessible spot with an accessible aisle, again with the ramp coming into building number 3. One of the comments I mentioned in over there is for them to obviously follow similar to what I was mentioning with the Superstore lot with our zoning bylaw. They did make the spots too small. So I have already addressed the sizing issue that we have over there. There was no issues with the length, but they were not meeting the 2.75 and the 3.65 meter expectations that we have for the specific site. So that is one of the pieces that I've addressed in over there. The other thing that I've indicated for this specific site is that they have the vertical signs allocated. Again, this goes along with their zoning bylaw, but they didn't mention it on the site plan itself. So I've highlighted that just to ensure that they haven't forgotten about that piece. 3rd piece that I've mentioned in here, and this is very common, what we normally talk about, I've put in a consideration for automatic door openers for all public access locations. That includes the proper delay times to make sure that the door doesn't shut on someone. Again, this normally falls under the Ontario Building Code, and so this should be a priority piece for them. I didn't indicate anything for sliding doors just because these seem like they're just going to be basic buildings, not too large. So I just kept it to just having consideration for normal automatic door openers on these specific lots. The exterior sidewalk, if you guys took the opportunity to take a look at it, it did not meet the requirements for the exterior paths of travel. We have to have a bare minimum of 1.5 meters running around the full building. And I'm not going to ask Ashita to zoom in on this, but on the north side, from my recollection, I think it was at about 1.2 meters, so a little bit too small. And the front, I believe, did meet the requirements, but either way, based on the code from the design of public spaces, they need to have the 1.5 meters running around the building. So I put that in as a piece that they have to address as well. Running slope was, and I mean, I'll get the committee's feedback on this. I hope you guys can chime in on this piece. This is one of those plots of land that I think might fall into the exceptions. I have sent my comments back indicating that we would like to see the ramp slopes addressed because they are quite heavy. The minimum that we should be seeing is either 1 to 15 or 1 to 20. So you're talking about like 5 to maximum 6-7% ramp. And from, again, my recollection with us having to zoom in, I believe it was at about 10% or something for the ramps. So I do want to see them addressing it. The issue is, and this is where I was mentioning that there might be an exemption in the legislation, is the grading might not be able to be fully adjusted. Again, if you guys have taken a look at that plot of land, it is running at quite an incline. So just wanted to get your feedback on in terms of how much of a hard push we really want to make with this. I haven't received comments back on the site plan. Again, this went out, I think I sent this over to them in, in March. So we'll probably be seeing a draft revision in the next couple of months where I can provide you exactly what they're saying. But in case I do get comments over the summertime during our break, because we don't meet again until September, I just want to get your feedback in advance on whether or not we do make a big push on making sure that they meet the grading expectations, or if we're going to provide some leniency based on the exemptions that come through the design of public spaces in the AODA. So I'll let the committee chime in on that piece.
Comments, anybody?
Well, it's Joanne here. I just feel that very often they're not meeting any of their measurements and stuff that they're supposed to do in a lot of things that we've dealt with. Now, is that not always a requirement from what has been set up for building laws? And why do these people come in under all the time what they're supposed to meet?
I honestly don't know. That would be a good question to send over to the planners, why developers miss these pieces. Specifically for the accessibility legislation.
Yes.
I didn't go to school for engineering or planning, so I don't really know what their curriculum looks like and whether or not, or how specific they address the legislation in that piece. One of the things I've been talking with our law team about, and I've seen few, but one of the bigger municipalities do this, is they actually have almost like a checklist that developers need to meet prior to even actually submitting their site plan applications to us. And I feel where you're going with this, Joanne, because I think the same way. Half the time I feel like I shouldn't have to look at parking sizes and the paths of travel, because these are just bare minimums that they should be meeting. And so one of the things I've brought up to Patricia, which is our solicitor, is us looking at actually having documentation built with expectations and checklists for developers to actually notify us immediately, saying that, yes, we have met the expectations for the zoning bylaw on barrier-free parking spots. Yes, we have met the expectations on exterior paths of travel. So that's one of the things that we're doing to address the issue that I agree with you. It's a pain in the butt, but I don't know why people are missing it, to be honest. That's definitely part of the reason why we have so many members take a look at site plans, is to double check the work of these individuals. But I think putting in that gateway piece essentially will make our lives a lot easier with having our committees will move a lot quicker, because they'll probably come in telling us their issues right off the bat. So I hope that kind of addresses, I know it's not the answer you want to hear, but I hope that kind of helps with where we want to go with it.
Now, as somebody that added on to their house years ago, I mean, boy, when you're adding on, they'll come in and they'll tell you that there's something wrong by 2 inches if it's not supposed to meet the rules, and they come in and tell you. And I don't understand why, as a business, and as people that are in this professional business that are running stuff, and I don't know why they're not meeting the codes. Seems strange to me.
Yep. So I can ask. Like I said, I actually don't know the procedure for them, but I'm happy to find out, because I'd be curious as well.
Thank you.
Any comments from the committee to my question earlier?
I think, am I on? Matt, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so it's John. I think the fact that they have an accessible spot in front of each store, I think they've made provisions considering the slope and everything else, that we do have accessible spots for each of the stores. That probably exceeds the requirement, does it not?
For this parking area, I don't remember what their total spots was. It was either 2 or 3 as the bare minimum. So they have met the bare minimum in terms of spots. The reason they didn't originally have all the spots per building, that was one of my pre-draft comments to them, where they had them all on one side actually, because if you'll notice on this drawing on the south exterior path in front of all the buildings, they have staircases leading from one platform to another. And one of the questions planning had for me is whether or not a ramp would be a viable option over there between the buildings. But that grade is so significant that they probably won't be able to. We did send them the question and they'll probably get back to us on that piece. But that is the reason we've basically split those spots up, is to address the fact that there are staircases between the buildings. So if someone needs to go from A, B, or C, they have a spot available to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Anyone?
One thing I saw in the back north walkway, they didn't provide any curb in that.
Where you were saying on the north side, there wasn't any curb indents. Ashita, can you put it back up? Thank you. On the north side, so the back, oh, so I see what you're saying, because they have the parking on the north side. You want to see just curb cuts and depressions indicated on the exterior path of travel, right, Max?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I can indicate that. I think I do remember, and again, I'm not going to ask you to zoom in on this because it's going to take forever, as you guys can tell. But I'll write it as a note just in case, and I can check in on my own time to make sure that they haven't. But that is a good point that I'll write down as well.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Can I get a motion to receive?
Joanne will make a motion.
Joanne? Seconder?
Matthew.
Matthew? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Can we go back to item number 2? Are we ready yet?
Sorry about that. Not yet. It's just taking a lot of time to load because the pictures are fairly huge. So I'm just trying to adjust it. So if we can move on and we'll come back to it, if that's okay. Sorry about that.
That's fine. Yeah.
No problem. So John, we'll go to item 4, and worst case scenario, Ashita, I can try pulling it up on my end and I can share my screen if it's still not loaded for you. We'll see. Maybe my computer just goes a little bit quicker than yours does. But John, let's just jump over to item number 4, and then we can kind of go from there.
Can you take us through that, Matt?
Yes, I will, sir. So this is SP 2020-03. This is another lot that's being proposed on 150 Addison Hall Circle. And so that location, again, similar to a lot of the site plans that we've been looking at recently, is behind the Walmart area. I think it's Desjardins that's in the back corner. So this is being proposed over there. This is the first submission that we're seeing for this specific piece. And to be honest, Ashita, if you don't mind putting it up for everyone to see. Overall, this site was actually pretty well done. No, that's not the right one. So while she's pulling those in, I'm going to actually wait until she has it because I have to just change the screen on my computer. So I just want to make sure you guys have it in front of you before I start talking about it. So I'll just wait a second.
Matt, is this building industrial, manufacturing, commercial, institutional?
It wasn't indicated. I think it's going to be more of like a business park from what I was aware. They did have, and thanks Ashita for putting that up. They had an individual business plaza specifically, and it looks quite large. So it looked like probably numerous offices, and it's just going to be that Ashita has this on over here. I'm just going to switch my screen. Okay, so I put in considerations, including proper time doors. Their barrier-free spots down over there were very well laid out, in my opinion. They're immediately in the short ends from the path of travel into the front of the building. So I had no comments on that. They did provide the appropriate amount of barrier-free spots. Sizing was okay in that piece as well. So the only thing that I indicated over there was just for them to provide vertical signage. And again, this is just usually me providing reminders because to what Joanne was mentioning earlier, sometimes they forget about these things, right? So I put that piece in there. I indicated that they put in some kind of crosswalk. This looks like there's a big curve basically happening right in front of where the entrance is. So my first thought was a lot of vehicle traffic that would be coming through might not see what's happening either on the north side or the west side, whether or not people are crossing in order to get to the exterior path of travel to get into the entrances. So I just put in a consideration for a crosswalk. I indicated as consideration just because it's not mandated by the legislation, whether design of public space or the Ontario Building Code. So I just wanted to highlight that piece. I put in consideration for a rest seating area to be provided for the outside and actually for accessible seating to be provided on the inside. So I didn't actually put in the drawings over here, but just because the inside were extremely basic. But as soon as you walk in, they did have a designated waiting area provided for individuals coming in over there. So I asked for them to provide accessible seating in the waiting area as well. And the last piece that I've highlighted as well on the interior, which they showed, there was a boardroom for consideration to provide assistive listening devices similar to what we provide in our buildings. So making sure that an induction loop, copper wire is provided in the buildings. So that way, anyone that's coming in with a T-coil hearing impairment device is able to plug in and be able to not have to deal with that barrier in case the room is quite large. So those were the comments that I put on for this one. I know, Joanne, you always like to know where they put their snow removal. So you'll notice on the north piece, they have a little area indicated over there far from any of the parking. And so that's where they've indicated where they would put the snow removal. So no worries for anyone shoveling anything into the barrier-free spots and blocking those up. But I will now open it up to the committee to see if there's any other concerns or questions that they may have.
Any comments from anyone?
I have one.
Great.
Go ahead,
It
Matt.
says at the back corner, there's 3 bicycle spaces, but there's no actual connection to any of the sidewalk infrastructure or anything.
North side, east side, west side, where are you looking at this map?
The top of the top right of the map.
Top right of the map?
Of the building.
Oh, I see the little boxes on the exterior path of travel.
Yeah.
So what was your issue? Sorry.
So the sidewalk around the building, like is that like standard width or accessible width?
That would meet the 1.5 meters expectation for exterior paths of travel.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one thing, like we can, and this is where I always kind of have this conversation with the team on this is 1.5 meters is a pretty good distance. So I don't know if we really want to indicate whether or not we want them to really consider expanding the sidewalk. One thing I would indicate now that you've highlighted that, Matt, is actually just bringing the bike path a little bit closer to the front, actually. That way you're not parking off your bikes all the way over there. The only issue, and this is where I think their thought process may have been right with this, is because it meets the bare minimum. If they had the bike rack anywhere closer to the front, it would probably impede the actual space for people to use the path of travel. So I kind of take, sorry, go ahead, Max.
I kind of agree with them in the place of the bike rack because it doesn't obstruct any path of travel.
So just in case anyone didn't catch what Max was mentioning, he was agreeing with the point I was just mentioning as I kind of took back what I was saying earlier with the bike path being left over there, or not the bike rack being left over there because it doesn't obstruct the exterior path of travel. Did I get that all right, Max? I'll take that as yes. One last thing I highlighted, I forgot to mention as well, is I did indicate for them to provide a crosswalk actually connecting the exterior paths of travel between the plazas. So there isn't anything indicating for someone to actually be able to cross Addison Hall Circle to all the other locations at the moment. So that was one final comment that I did include in there as well that I just failed to mention earlier.
Yeah, because there's only sidewalk on one side of the road in the plans.
Yeah. So you can see it's indicated on Addison. So that's what I was mentioning, that they create a path of travel in order to get into that plaza. So that way people that are walking are able to get into there as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other comments?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
It's Rochelle here. I don't know. Are you supposed to have like door buttons indicated on a plan of the sort, or is that later on? I'm new to this, so I'm not sure if I should be looking for that kind of thing.
Yeah, so normally, no, they wouldn't indicate that kind of stuff. Usually like these drafts are very basic. And when they get into when inspectors get involved for like the actual building code component, then they start. So like usually when and I'll mention like making sure that they put in automatic door openers. And whenever they provide the responses, it's always when we get to that stage in the process, we will start highlighting those pieces. But when we look at it as a committee, we don't usually get those indications. But we usually still put in a mention, especially if we're looking at like sliding doors as an option instead of just operated doors through a button. That's something good to highlight in these stages.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thanks.
No problem.
Any other comments? Joanne?
Well, I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay. Motion to receive as information? Anyone?
Matthew.
Matthew? Seconder?
I'll second it.
Joanne? Second. Sorry, she beat you there, Max. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. So can we go back to item 3?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
We can go back to item 2 if we'd like. That's
Item
ready
2.
to go.
Was
Is it
item
ready?
2?
Yep.
Wait, sorry, item 2. That's right. My pile's mixed up here.
I'm too
Matt,
enthusiastic.
take us through this.
I'm ready. Yeah, Sheeta, whenever you have a chance, if you can get her up there, that's good. Okay. So like I was mentioning before, we couldn't get the file up a little bit earlier today. This is a 7-story residential tower that's going to be placed on Leslie Street, just a little bit north of the entrance getting into the Walmart Plaza. For those of you that know on Wellington, there's that east street that takes you up there into that Addison area that we were just actually talking about. So this is on the west side of Leslie, just a little bit north of that. So 7 stories. This is where I was mentioning, I hope you guys were able to take a look at these site plans in detail prior to us meeting, because based on Ashita having a hard time even loading this up, I know if I even ask her to zoom in, we're going to have some difficulties. So I hope you guys are okay with taking my word on a lot of the comments that I made on this. And if you guys have taken the opportunity to kind of take a look at this in advance, we can obviously just chat about it without hopefully zooming in too much on the property. So I'll start going through the comments that I've mentioned on this specific site. So this one's going to make Joanne chuckle, but again, I've mentioned that they have to meet the requirements of the Aurora zoning bylaw. The type A spots were not at the 3.65 meter spec that we expect for those parking spots. And to what I was mentioning earlier, Joanne, I think why this gets missed quite a bit for the town of Aurora is we go above and beyond what the legislation expects. So the legislation is 3.4 meters. We ask for extra size to be added in for our type A spots. The type B is the same. So that might be a part of it, is just the developer just didn't take the time to really look in detail at our zoning bylaws prior to submitting their original drafts. So that's just me kind of thinking this through at this point, but I thought I'd throw that in there. They were also missing the bare minimum number of accessible parking spots that were accepted. So for this site, it is 7. So I've highlighted that they have to meet that according to the AODA Design of Public Spaces standard. On the top piece over here, I'm just going to go through my comments according to what we see over here. So what you're seeing in front of you is on this, the drawing is backwards here, but for me, but the greenery space that they have available over there, I've mentioned that they have corresponding light provided throughout the gardens to ensure that anyone is walking through those paths of travel has it lit up properly. It's nice that they've provided that for anyone that's living in that area. I just want to make sure that it is properly lit. I mentioned that they have to provide a corresponding curb depression to the access aisles for the spots that they have provided. Again, not all site plans, and this is going to your question, Rochelle, earlier with whether or not they should be indicating this kind of stuff. Technically, usually planners don't put this in. I always mention it because sometimes it's forgotten, people miss it. So I have indicated over there that they have to put in the curb depressions according to the access aisles that they've provided in there. I've mentioned over here for a consideration to provide rest and seating area in the front, because there is a lot of good green and walking space around this whole building. I think they have a little pond actually over there. That's what that greenery is that you'll see on the left side of the page. I've asked for numerous seating areas to be provided so that way the residents can sit down and enjoy. Consideration for automatic door openers. And so again, we always mention this one, making sure that they include proper timed door delays. I've indicated to make sure that they focus on providing tactile indicators at all the proposed staircases. So these would be all the emergency staircases that run through the building. It is supplied by an elevator, so most people will be using that, but I highlighted that piece in case anyone chooses to use the staircase on this building. For the service counters on the inside of the building, I've mentioned that they should provide an accessibility spot. So for those of you that have been at Town Hall, where we have that spot where wheelchairs, scooters are able to come in and be eye level with our customer service representatives, that's what we'll be highlighting for this specific area. Okay. Okay, and the last two pieces for the outdoor before I have Ashita move down to the parking areas. On the top of this building, there is allocated outdoor space provided to the residents. And so I've asked for a minimum of 20% of the tables to be accessible if they're going to be providing any kind of eating areas. This aligns with the AODA expectation in case they put that in there. They have not highlighted that it's going to be eating areas, but just in case that they might throw that into the site plans in future drafts, I've already mentioned that for them. And that ensuring that the minimum sidewalk path of travel is 1.5 meters. I believe there was a portion in the green space that I highlighted for them that actually didn't meet those standards as well. Ashita, if you don't mind sliding over to the next 2 slides, that would be the underground parking. And this might take you a little bit to get through it. This is where I was struggling earlier.
As you're going over to that, can I just ask something?
Of course.
When you have a green space in the midst of something, do we ever provide an emergency phone on a pole or anything? That, I mean, there's people like myself who don't carry cell phones. There's, you know, many people can go out and take a walk and maybe not even take it with them. Is there any possibility, like if somebody went down and fell down and was knocked out, that somebody would have some way to get in touch with anybody?
So to answer your question on whether or not it's an expectation, no, not based on the standards and legislation that we're looking at. I haven't even seen it. It wouldn't be in the Ontario Building Code because that's interior based, but I do like the point that you've made. So I've actually, as you were saying it, I already wrote it down to just bring it up over there because I don't see why not. Like if they're interested in doing it, I think they should consider it. So I have written it down, Joanne, but to answer your question, no, it's not in the legislation as an expectation for anything like that.
Well, we had an attack on a young girl who went to the town offices and we had different things that happened, and I just thought that maybe it's something to consider.
Yep, so I've written that down. It's a good point.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so here is the parking lot, and I'm sorry that I look really close on the screen just because I'm trying to see what I have in front of me as well. So the boxes that have almost like X's in them in the middle of this map would be your elevators that are provided. Now, the accessible spots you can see are kind of distributed around the elevators. You can see one is quite a bit far away, like on the left-ish side. It's hard for me to describe without being able to use my mouse, but I'm sure you guys can see on the top row of parking spots, there are 2 indicated accessible barrier-free parking spots over there. So the comment I've basically made is to ensure that all the barrier-free spots on each floor of the underground parking are in the shortest path of travel to the elevators. So that way they're able to come in over there. And I've indicated that access aisles need to be put in there as well, because as you guys know, with any of the barrier-free parking spots, whether we're talking type A or type B, they have to provide the 1.5 meters right next to the spot in order for any vans coming in there and allowing for wheelchairs, scooters, or anything being able to come through. Let me just check to see if there was anything else that I mentioned for the basements, not the basements, sorry, for the parking. I don't believe so. And just so Ishida, you can start going through the different slides and people can see it. So what we'll have over here is there's 2 floors of parking spots. As you can see, again, on this one, barrier free is quite a bit away from the actual elevators. And the remaining drawings that you would see on this site plan application would be the different floors available for the individuals coming into this tower. So on the main floor, there was nothing indicated about customer service, but we did mention that they have accessible counters provided in case they do. And like I was mentioning for the top floor, that they do have that green space that I think they indicated that one of the areas, there was 2 green spaces on the top floor. One of them was indicating that it was not accessible to all. It wasn't a barrier-free path of travel. So I will look through my notes over here. I was looking at it today when I noticed that. And so I want to mention that they provide at least an answer as to why the second piece wouldn't be barrier-free for us. And then that way we can provide better recommendations as to what we would like to see over there. But I think that's it for the comments that I have for this specific location. There was a piece in here about making sure there's a universal washroom on the main floor, but again, that falls under the Ontario Building Code as an expectation. So it's not even a consideration for us to provide for them. But yeah, so there was quite a bit of comments for that. So if anyone has any questions or further comments, I'm happy to answer or listen.
Can I just ask, and I apologies if, you know, this was obvious in the plans and I just missed it, but as soon as you enter the building, is the foyer sort of on the same level as where I guess the concierge desk would be? Or yep. Is it a 2-level situation? Because I know some sort of resident condo buildings do have it in 2 levels.
I believe it was all 1 main floor.
Okay.
Like, I know you're saying like whether they have like the 2-stage like with stairs. This
yeah.
one, I based on what I saw, I didn't have any indication that there is. I'll write it down just to double check, just in case. But yeah. From what I remember, and again, I don't want to zoom in because I know what's going to happen. It'll freeze and crash.
I know.
But
yeah.
Yeah. So because I have my Mac right next to me, and I tried zooming in on this one earlier today, and my mine won't even do it. So yes, I do believe it was just all 1 main flat level, but I will make note to just double check for that piece, Rochelle.
Yeah, because I know that sometimes when they have the double level, they'll put in those little, like, they're not elevators, they're basically lifts, right? Yep. That are usable with a key. And those are just not ideal. And I mean, obviously, I don't know if they can make changes at that point, but I was just curious whether or not that was what they were planning. But yeah, but I think you've answered my question.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll double check for that, and then I can reach out to you actually specifically. I'll reach out to the committee, letting you guys know afterwards when I take a look at it.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Is there any other comments from committee members on this piece? So those last ones, the sheet is just showing, these are just the elevation drawings. So you can see from north, south, west, and east, just to kind of see how the building looks. So a couple of the levels actually overarch one another. So it's an interesting design, but there's not too much for you guys to really see in these elevation pieces. It's just more just to see the aesthetics of how the tower will look.
One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Max.
And the stairs, can we possibly suggest a accessible evacuation stair?
So you were mentioning with the stairs, what kind of evacuation route are you looking for to be placed in the stairs?
Evacuate a barrier free as a chair that you can put a disabled person into easily evacuate in case of an emergency.
So I just want to make sure that I got you correct, Max. Are you asking for drawings to be provided on the floor so people know how to get to the emergency stairs? Maybe I'm just misreading you, or if anyone else caught what Max was mentioning. So Max, why don't you, just because like for me, you're chopping up quite a bit. So I'm catching the majority of it, but I'm missing it. Do you mind trying to type it into Zoom? Is that okay with you? Yeah, okay. So while Max is typing that in, is there any other comments to be added in? Nothing else? Okie dokes. So
I put my message.
why isn't it showing for me?
I read the message.
Oh, an evacuation chair?
Area.
Oh, so you're wondering whether, so I know what you're talking about. I'm okay to put the comment in. I will be frank that I guarantee you that they'll say no. It's a very, very pricey expectation. But I'm okay adding that in if that's what you want to put in for consideration. Yes, Max, I can add that piece in.
What is it, an evacuate? Is that like a chair that goes down the stairwell, like in a on the?
So similar to what you'd see in like residential homes where you're able to sit down and kind of go down the stairways.
Right.
So individuals that can't walk. And so I think what Max is going with is in case like the elevator shuts down or something, that way residents that aren't able to walk down the stairs have a way to get down as well. So I can put in there. I've never heard of it actually being done in these kind of large building settings, Max. So I'm curious to see, I'm actually just going to do the research to see whether that's something that's been done. Definitely outside of York region, because I haven't seen anyone here. But I will put that in there for you.
That's actually a really smart idea. I never thought about that, but especially for a multi-story condo building or apartment building, that's actually a really smart idea.
Well, that's what I want to see if it's something that people do, right? Because I know it's like residential, but I haven't seen it done on commercial or tower buildings by any means, right? So I'm curious to see how that would work.
They actually have them in every school now.
added them into schools now? Have I been out of school that long?
Yes.
Got a ways to go.
Yeah. So
When I was in school, I had to just sit at the window with a big help sign. So things must have changed.
So Max, I'm glad that you brought that up actually. So I do want to look into it. Like I said, this is for sure like a consideration piece, not a mandate one. So I've written it down, but I do want to look at the technology that you're talking about. So that's cool to see.
So can we get a motion to receive as information, please?
Haley?
Haley? Seconder?
Joanne?
Glenn? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. I guess we've gone through everything. Matt, informational items. I think you have that one.
Yep. So I think, was it item 5 that we just went over? Is it roundtable discussion or are we on?
Oh,
So through you, Mr. I think we're on item 5, the roundtable discussion
Okay.
on the
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure.
accessibility plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah,
Okay.
John, you're taking away my notes here, man. I was trying to follow them. I'm like, what?
I just flying along here. Oh, sorry. I didn't flip the page. Okay.
Alrighty. So yes, we can get into the roundtable discussion as normal. Let me just jump in, letting you know updates on our accessibility annual plan, and then you guys are welcome to come in with any additional requests that we want to explore or any concerns that you guys may have. Rochelle, I know you've reached out to me with something you want to talk about, so I'll let you jump in once I'm done my piece over here, if that's okay.
Yep. Thank you.
No problem. So just to update everyone on budgetary items. So for capital projects, our Lambert Wilson Trail is actually complete. So we have provided a lighting system that runs from Town Hall, the Aurora Senior Center, all the way over to the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. So that is awesome. When I say complete, we are literally hanging on a string in terms of just waiting for the electrician to officially come by and sign off that the electrical work is good on all of the lighting systems. So I haven't officially stamped it as complete on our forms, but all of them are installed on the pathway. We're pretty much 99% of the way. So I figured I would come on to here and just let you guys know our progress, that we're pretty much complete. Hopefully with restrictions starting to kind of die down a little bit right now with COVID, that we can get an electrician out there sooner rather than later in order to just kind of give us that certification, or let us know if there's any issues that we need to address prior to completing the project. Our 3 APS systems, so the audible pedestrian signals that we've identified to be addressed. So Kennedy, Henderson, and Engelhard. Engelhard is going perfectly fine. We are still expecting to be done in Q3, so probably like a September, latest October to finish Engelhard. So that one is on industrial. Kennedy and Henderson have been pushed to 2021, so fall of next year. And that is strictly just because we are aligning with what engineering is doing on the roads. So they have pushed their road project a year. And it doesn't make sense for us to dig up sidewalk and road in order to complete the auto pedestrian signals on these intersections. So I have given them the okay basically to push it off 1 year to make sure that we align it and we don't waste taxpayer dollars ripping up the road twice. Our pool pod, I know I was showing you guys the video. I don't remember if it was this year or even last year when we first started looking at this project, but the pool pod has been installed at the Stronach. And so, Rochelle, you're new to the committee, so you probably didn't hear much about this. We're one of the very few municipalities in all of Canada, actually, that has a pool pod available. So normally pools have Hoyer lifts, where there's a requirement for staff to transfer or workers to transfer individuals from wheelchair to the Hoyer lift them, put them into a pool. The pool pod is basically, we provide aquatic wheelchairs where someone can get changed in their change room. They use their wheelchair to basically ride right onto the platform, and the platform directly just goes into the water. So no more unsafe transfers for any individuals trying to come into the pools. It's a brand new piece of technology actually available. So we're going to be one of the first ones hosting its availability to residents in York region. So one of the things I think I'd like to discuss, and I know Haley's been a big push on this, is providing some kind of social media blast on it. So I think once we start hearing a little bit more on when residents will be coming back into our community centers, when we start seeing a little bit more activity in the rec centers for pools and everything, I think it'd be great for getting the committee basically to come into the Stronach and showcase basically what the pool pod is, what its purpose basically serves. And I think it's just something nice for us to basically be going on there and providing to the public. So we can discuss that a little bit later on. Staff have not been trained on the pool pod quite yet. I've waited basically until we get the go ahead for centers to open up, because I know if I train them now, they're going to forget by the time everything reopens. So we're going to hold that off right until everyone's able to get back in over there. We have sent in the IRFQ, which is the informal request for quotes for the other lifts at the Stronach as well. So the hydrotherapy pool, we are not able to put a pool pod on something like that, obviously, because it's lifted, it's not level with the ground. So we still are required to provide a Hoyer lift, but the one that we have over there is quite old. It has some issues. So the request form has been sent out so that way vendors are able to bid on that. I'm hoping to get all the, I gave them, I think, until July 3rd. So the end of the month, basically, to provide their quotes. And then winner, based on the bidding process, would then be given the go ahead to start doing the installations for either July or August, based on what we think is best for our staff members. The change tables and the facility accessibility design standards that we've been talking about for a long time. I'm currently in the preparation mode for the pre-bids. These are more pricey quotes that we're going to be getting. So we are going into an RFP process for this. That's my expectation. We'll see what the quotes come back as. So I'm currently just doing the pre-bid forms. They will be released in June. So you'll probably see them come up on our procurement page. And vendors, again, will be able to submit their quotes for those pieces. And again, I mean, I'm trying to push these things all right now. I was going to originally do them in more of like the fall to winter time, but because our facilities are empty, I figured let's do them now while we can get some vendors in there, and that way we don't have any disruptions with any of our programs. So that is my update on the accessibility plan and any of the capital items that we have currently being worked on. So I'll open up the table again to the rest of the committee for any questions they may have on the items they'd like to speak about.
Joanne here. Did anything get done about making the doors automatic at the pool?
So we'll talk about that next, actually, Joanne. So the operational budget that we have coming up on item 6, I'll address that piece over there.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not hearing any comments. Rochelle, I know you were mentioning you wanted to address an issue, so I'll give you the spotlight for that.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is nothing obviously that was planned to talk about, but I just wanted to bring it up. And as you know, I'm new, so I'm never really sure as to, you know, the appropriate time and even what our sort of role would be as a committee in addressing this. So it sort of came to my attention. The location I'm talking about is right on Yonge, where the Tim Hortons and the Enhanced Care Medical Clinic are. I don't know if people are familiar with that location.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this location a couple of times. I don't remember if it was Matthew that brought it up or someone
really?
else, but yeah, we have talked about it. Yep.
Parking spot?
So,
the parking. Yeah.
Pardon?
The parking spot?
The parking spot, the one parking spot with the ramp that basically, as soon as someone's parked there, it renders the ramp completely unusable for anyone else. But then, so it actually, that's my medical clinic. So that's where my doctor's office is. And so this all came to my attention when I was there, and the parking spot was occupied. So I was parked somewhere else. I couldn't use the ramp. So there's actually another ramp at the other end where right in front of the Tim Hortons, but it's what I noticed, and this is what was so dangerous for me. And actually I almost was run over by a car coming out of the drive-through. And so the ramp there in front of the Tim Hortons is actually on an angle, sort of on the diagonal point of that corner there. So anyone coming off that particular ramp is basically heading straight into the drive-through exit traffic. And because of the nature of the fact that it is a corner, it makes visibility almost impossible. So, I mean, the cars are not going to see anyone using that ramp coming down there. And so it was horrendous. I mean, I wouldn't have, I probably was seconds away from not even being here today because I was almost hit by a car. And it just made me realize how ridiculous that ramp is. And the fact that the other ramp is pretty much 90% of the time unusable if someone's parked in that one spot. So I guess I wanted to bring it to your attention, I mean, the committees, just to find out, I mean, do we have any sort of, I guess, I don't know if the right word's power to address this? Is it the type of thing where they would have sort of abided by the rules back then and we can't even touch it? Is there some way that it can be addressed? I don't know if someone, I mean, if someone could sort of enlighten me as to, you know, whether we have any way of addressing this at all, I'd be really appreciative.
Yeah, so I'm happy to jump in on this. We definitely have talked about this site specifically. I actually just pulled it up on Google Maps to just take a look, like as you were speaking about it. So we 100% have addressed this one. So this is one of those situations, and this is why I mentioned in the email, usually people email me prior to bringing it up even at the meetings, because a lot of, especially Yonge Street specifically, is a disaster in the sense where they're grandfathered in prior to a lot of the good legislative changes that have happened with the Accessibility for Ontarians Disabilities Act. So in the current act, whenever a spot's put in there, they had to provide that accessible aisle, right? And that provides you, like you were mentioning, that space. So that way, when you come out of your car, you're able to get out. And then if it is beside the ramp, which is usually the ideal thing to have, you're able to get into the ramp. Now, in this situation, I don't think they have any accessibility aisles from what I remember over there. It's just basically the parking spots. And then one of them is just indicated as a barrier-free spot, right?
Yeah.
So the short answer to the long story here is we don't have a lot of power for these private businesses unless they're making significant changes or doing some kind of grading for those sites. So if they're making a significant change, then we can say you now have to abide by the new bylaw standards and the new design of public spaces. But until they put in a shovel, and this is the other fight we generally have with private locations, is what actually is justified as a large project or a significant enough change for them to actually have to make those changes. So what we generally do, and now that we've mentioned it a couple of times, I think what we can do is just basically speak to, and I can try to get the information from bylaw as to who the developer is for that piece of land. And we can make that address as a committee, basically through a letter or emails. I would prefer actually doing a letter. It comes off as a little bit more professional. We can vet it through the clerk's office. That way we can have it sent over to them to address that in the future. But like I said, long story short is we don't have too much power right now, Rochelle, until they're making those changes, because that's how the lot was built and they followed the law when it was built.
Okay, so then I understand what you're saying. So then when I was going through, oh my gosh, what's it called? The Town of Aurora Accessibility Plan, and I was trying to figure out, you know, where would this fall into anything? And I read about sort of the idea of retrofitting facilities. So what you're saying is they have to be sort of the ones that are beginning a renovation in order for that to apply as something that the town would be concerned with.
And a lot of the, oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
It was about 2 years ago, they repaved that parking lot.
And I'm
not sure if you were in the role at the time, but it seemed to be that the accessible spot was made a lot narrower.
Yeah, and I think that was the conversation. I do believe, again, like we're all guessing here because I don't remember exactly when they did the paving. So I don't think that I was in the role. If it was like, I came into this just actually 2 years now, basically come April or when April passed. So it is right along that timeline. But to what I was mentioning with a repaving, they're just painting, right? And so like, I agree with you, like if they made the spot smaller, that's an issue, right? But in terms of whether or not that would fall in the category of them technically saying that it's a big enough project to say, hey, like we need to relook at the zoning of all these spots, it wouldn't fall into that category. And to what you were mentioning with Rochelle, with what's in our annual plan, a lot of the retrograde stuff that we're working on and then what's indicated in there is for town-owned facilities because we have the power over those pieces. It's very difficult unless we say on this date when you went through your application, you broke the law. We can't really approach a private business saying, hey, you need to go make these changes. That's why I was mentioning, I think it's powerful as a committee or even if we get the community involved on that piece saying that, hey, this is a big problem issue for the community that's coming in and trying to use that area. Especially, I think they have quite a bit of senior homes in the towers over there in that area as well that probably are taking advantage of that spot, and to your point, are not able to fully be able to get out of their vehicles without getting into vehicle traffic or just not being able to access the ramp that's available to them.
So so you're saying they're protected by this sort of grandfathering rule. So I get all that. Is there no sort of safety sort of measures that the town would be concerned with? I mean, obviously back then they sort of built according to the regulations that were in place at the time. But I'm just wondering, I mean, if it's a significant safety issue and deemed as such, I wonder, I mean, does the town not have any sort of jurisdiction to say, okay, yes, you passed the rules way back when, but now, we've had, a few people almost, being run over in a certain spot or whatever. Can the town not step in any way and say, okay, well, whatever the laws were back then, we need this changed now because someone's going to lose their life? I mean, I just wonder, is there any line that they can sort of, I don't know, use?
Off the top of my head, and this would be a research thing, but I'm pretty certain that there isn't. I think, and I'd like for Sam or Ashita to maybe jump in on this piece as well, is whether or not that's actually an opportunity for a delegation to come through from the community to council, and council to have some kind of authority in that piece. I don't know whether that would be the case, so I'll let them jump in on that. But I am happy to speak to our bylaw manager, who would probably be the best person to answer that, to see if we have some kind of authority. But I don't think that we do in that sense what you're mentioning with like a public safety piece, other than the community basically bringing up the issue and making almost a stink about it, and then hopefully the developer or the owner of that private lot to make those changes. So I'm all for pushing this. I know we've talked about it in the past, but I definitely would have to do a little bit of research. But I'll let the clerk's office jump in on whether or the delegation idea would be something that we could consider.
Hi, everybody. It's Samantha here. We've had the different committees delegate to council in the past for different things. Let me bring this back to the clerk and discuss that with him. And what I'll do is I'll send an email out to the committee and sort of let you know what the best next steps would be regarding that.
Okay, so yeah, similar to what I was mentioning, Rochelle, I will also do my due diligence. I'll get to bylaws, Samantha will get to the clerk's office, and then hopefully we can compile a better response to you on maybe what steps are available to us as a committee in order to make change there. But yeah, Yonge Street in general, I know Matthew's made numerous comments about a couple of the, and he's right? It's unfortunate that it's just some old buildings, and a lot of them are medical centers that have crazy steep stairs getting into basements and stuff, but it's just they've been there for such a long time, and until they do some serious construction on them, it's kind of like to what I was mentioning.
Or Metro.
Yep.
Or Metro with their putting all those pallets on the sidewalk and blocking off the sidewalk.
But pallets, see, like that's different, right? Like they shouldn't be doing that, and if we catch them, like that's something we can address, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but in terms of actual like the exterior paths of travel and the barrier-free parking, like depending on when it was built, it would be built according to the zoning bylaws and the legislation at that time. And again, technically, until they start putting a shovel in the sand, basically, that we're kind of cuffed in that sense. But I think it'll be good if we both get back to you with what we have as options as a community and as a committee, and then we can kind of take our next steps from there.
So I have a question.
Yeah, Matt.
So the shoppers on Holland View Trail.
Yep.
They did extensive
That's
renovations.
Bayview in Holland View?
Yes.
Yep.
They did extensive renovations inside, but I've noticed they're accessible parking spots. So they got the curb. One of them has a curb depression right next to it. The other one is next to the other accessible spot, but doesn't have a curb depression.
Do they share an accessible aisle?
Nope.
I'd have to go take a look at it to see what it is that you're talking about. So like how you and I always do this, Matt, like we'll exchange notes and we'll go take a look at that site. Cause I just need to see what it is that the issue is. That way I can address it properly.
Because if I remember correctly, before they repainted the lines and everything, and they redid that section of the parking lot. Mm-hmm. They used to have 2 spots with 1 aisle.
Which would be the appropriate way to do it. Yep.
Yeah. But now they have 1 aisle, but 2 spots on one side. So one
No,
of them
that
doesn't
would, that,
connect.
to your point, yeah, if that's how it's built, then it would be incorrect. Each spot based on the legislation needs to have its own or shared accessible aisle. So if I'm understanding you right, it's
Yeah.
parking spot aisle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
if
the
that's
only
the
reason-
case, it would be incorrect and we would have to address that piece.
The only reason why I noticed this was because I was there one day and I saw my neighbor was there and there was 2 cars there and he parked in the second spot without the aisle. And he was having trouble getting onto the curb.
Yeah, so like I said, if that's the case, yes, like that is, so that's a good example, Rochelle, of something we would address because they're not following the legislation in that case. So yeah, so we'll do what we normally do, Matt, when you address these is we'll get bylaw involved on that piece. I'll make an attempt to get over to that site probably next week. I will not make it down this week, and then we can get some pictures. Or if you get to that site, or if anyone's there sometime this week before I get to it, please send those pictures over, and I can get that over to bylaw in order to address that issue.
Did you get a chance to look at the accessible spot at near Flavors, Chocolate Flavors in Aurora? The one at
Flavors.
St. John Cider in Bayview, the small plaza.
Remind me what we were talking about with that, because it's not ringing a
They-
bell, Matt.
They put a garbage can right next to the accessible spot.
We
Right.
spoke about this in the last one.
Yes,
Then did you email me after? Because I don't think I got an email. Maybe that's why I didn't get to it.
I think I may have sent an email, but maybe I sent it to the wrong person. I
Okay,
may have sent it to myself by accident.
That's okay. So
I've done that once or twice.
So yeah, that's again another example that we would address. So I've written down both of those right now. That was, you said, Bayview and St. John's.
Yeah,
That's next to the new breakfast place and stuff that they have over there, right? With all the townhouses.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. St.
If,
John's.
if you are going to that Shoppers Plaza that
Yep.
we were just talking about, in the back end of that little plaza, there's a medical building, and of that building, they have a ramped area for you to go in and 2 handicap parking. At the back, they have a handicap parking on the corner of the building, which is allotted private for the doctor who's in a wheelchair. And she takes that, but beside her is the ramp, and that's at the very end of the sidewalk, and you have to walk halfway down the building to get to the door. And I've gone into the administration office that's in that building, and I've asked them if they could ramp the cement down to the driveway there, and they said there's not enough room. Well, it appears to me to be approximately, not quite, but approximately the same amount there is at the front. And when you go further down and come to the other part of the parking lot, wanted to come in from down there, the the curb is even higher there than it is anywhere else. So trying to get up over a curb that is very difficult. It's very difficult at that building. But I have gone into the administration and talked to them a couple of times, but they haven't done anything.
I have spoken with them as well, and I haven't gotten anything back. And that is, again, to what I was mentioning with Rochelle, one of those ones where, like, when a building like that is built, right? So like you're looking at a business plaza. So like one of the ones we were looking at earlier today, it doesn't indicate where you'll have your medical centers or anything, right? It's just a business plaza. So even when we're looking at where we'll have spots or curb aisles or curb depressions, we don't really know what it's going to be serving. So that runs into the case of we don't really have the jurisdiction to mandate that they make those changes. It's the approach that we're taking. We're basically making the request for them to make those changes, but there's nothing we can do in terms of forcing them to do that.
They've got a full medical building, and then in the back,
I agree.
right at the back door, they've got the labs. And
Yep.
people are going in and out on that regular basis with absolutely no handicap parking out there across from the door, because there's only the one at the corner, and no ramp in.
Yep.
So difficult.
Yep. And so I don't mind. I'll reach out again. So I'll add them onto the list of those ones, but a little bit different than the 2 that Matthew mentioned, where we do have authority. This one, it's just more of a consideration that we can ask for the private law to do.
My phone's making a few noises, and I don't know if it's going to last. I will stay on as long as I can, okay?
Okay.
Matt, just going back to Rochelle's point on the medical center. Did you talk to the medical center themselves? Because they pay the bills, right? So if you pressure them and voice your concerns, maybe they can have maybe a heavier hand with the owner to make those changes.
Well, I'm going to work with, now that I've got a good relationship with Barla, I'm just going to get them to actually give me the direct, like who owns the lands. Before, like I'd go through like the administrative teams and stuff to try to get to people. And to your point, it's like, it doesn't always reach to the appropriate people. So working with bylaw and planning, I'm hoping just to get right to the individual that I need to speak to in order to get that done.
Yeah, having a signed letter, like you were saying, from us and whoever else we can get would be very helpful. I mean, I think it's definitely
it's a little bit more powerful, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, I've always done like the phone calls, but I think as like our committee grows and we all make like you guys are making great valid points, I think it'll, I guess, have a little bit more spice, to put it in a way, to have an official letter sent from the clerk's office to make these considerations. And then hopefully they feel a little bit more obligated to provide a response, just because I get it, like they're all business owners, they're busy, and like technically they don't have to answer, but hopefully by receiving like a formal letter from the clerk's office, there might be a little bit more behind it. So we'll see if that works.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments for a roundtable discussion?
I have another comment. This
Go
is
ahead.
actually town lands. So the town of Aurora fills potholes. And we have parks with pathways that connect to the road and the sidewalks. But I've noticed when biking around Aurora that when you get from the curb to the town pathways, most of the time when you switch from the curb to the pathways, there's almost like a divot or like a pothole there. So I was wondering if the town was able to like fill those in as they're filling potholes in.
Should be able to, similar to like the other ones that you're indicating, Matt. I think it's just a matter of highlighting where the issues are. Like that's with like most potholes and roads and stuff, right? If the residents let us know where the issues are, I don't see us having any issues. Different roads and different areas will have different jurisdictions. So we handle some areas, York Region handles some areas. So like Bayview and parts of Yonge Street, for example, are owned by York Region, and other parts are owned by us, right? So that's what I was saying, wherever like those issues are, just shoot them off always in an email, and then I can pass that along to our team or York Region, depending on who the appropriate contact is, in order to address those. But that shouldn't be an issue at all, no.
No, I've gotten a good working relationship with Thomas, who's the head of road safety for York Region. So
yeah, I've worked with Thomas before.
I've gotten a lot of issues fixed with that.
Yep. And I work very closely with York Region, like Accessibility Advisory Committee, and a lot of their diversity and inclusion specialists. So yeah, I've got good relationships there as well. So like I said, any issues on that, just shoot to me through email, and then I'm more than happy to get that addressed for you, Matt.
Did you get to look at the crosswalk or at Earl Stewart, the one on the curve?
Yeah, I think we talked about that offline at one of our meetings. That falls into that we can't force them to create the crosswalk, but we can readdress that similar to how we're coming
but it's
back
owned by us. It's town road
on Earl Street.
Earl Stewart Drive.
Earl Stewart Drive. And the crosswalk on where, Matt? On Earl Stewart Drive.
If you see the pizza.
Yeah.
There's the Earl Stewart Road, and there's the sidewalk that crosses Earl Stewart.
I'm just going on there right now. Give me a second. I'm Google mapping this.
Isn't it great? I love Google Maps.
It is. Okay, so I see you're mentioning the crosswalk to go across Earl Stewart, right?
Yeah.
Over to like where that old Reebok Plaza was?
No, so they have a crosswalk that connects the north and southbound Earl Stewart to the east and westbound, to the westbound Earl Stewart.
Okay. So Matt, let's connect offline about this just because I want to stick to the agenda items on this. And then we can address that. Okay.
Okay.
Does that work for you?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Just, do we need to receive this discussion? I don't think we do we?
Yes, we do.
Oh, we do? Okay. Motion to receive. Anyone?
I'll make the motion, Joanne.
Joanne, the seconder, Max?
Um,
All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. So next item, informational items. Matt, that's the separate page, I guess, we have, item 6.
Yep. So this is actually, and so Matt, just to get back to that Earl Stewart piece, what I'll do is I'll set up, excuse me, a Zoom meeting for us to just talk about it offline. Like I said, we're at 8:30 already. I just want to be conscious of the time for the meeting. And so we can address that offline if you don't mind. I know you're mentioning you're okay with that, but I'll set that up for us. Okay.
Okay.
So for the operational piece, this is actually Councillor Gilliland's request, and she wasn't able to make it to this meeting actually. So either way, we will go through the operational piece. There was a request by the councillor just to see where the budget is with numbers and figures beside it. And so either way, I think this is a good opportunity to just talk about potentially the changes now, because when we were first speaking about this originally, it was prior to COVID really taking a hold on our operations. And now, obviously, things are going to be changing. So I do still want to go ahead with the sensory tent project. I know the committee approved the funds that we were speaking about last time. So that's the 370875 piece highlighted in yellow. Anything highlighted in yellow has not been officially invoiced, but these are projects that we have planned for this year. So I do want to keep that on there because even, let's say hypothetically, we don't have an outdoor event this year. I'd rather be prepared for 2021 to properly launch this. And it gives us an opportunity to potentially test this even with the committee or staff members. So again, now that we have the figures in front of you, I will bring it back to the table just to kind of talk about and see whether there was any issues that anyone wants to highlight. The accessibility trailer is the only one I think that might come off of there. And so that will give us an extra $2,000 in our operation budget, just because the way things are going right now, I don't anticipate RipFest happening. Again, I could be wrong and it could still be there. So that's why it's still left as a placeholder. But everything else should be moving forward. You'll notice that we have 2 blanks in there. So I'm actually having a really hard time finding appropriate wall signage for the induction loops that we've provided at all of our customer service counters. I've already purchased ones that can sit on the counters and we can provide signage through that, but I want to be able to place on glass and wall a couple of these braille signs. And like the AFLC, for example, where we have like the glass wall where people would be coming to the customer service. So that's why that one's blank. And this was a recent one that Joanne brought on, I think, in the March one, which is where I'll be exploring the pricing for the spa railing for the AFLC. And to your question a little bit earlier today, Joanne, we do have the AFLC door operators. That's number 5 on the table over there, where I have $5,000 allocated. That would be for both the male and female change rooms at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. So I know you were asking about that a little bit earlier. So that's where I have it highlighted, and it should be done this summer, actually, prior to the doors opening for the community to come back in.
On the pool side as well as the outdoor aisle side?
Yeah, I'm doing the outdoor and interior pieces. Well, I guess they're both interior, but yes, the hallway and the pool doors, correct.
Is there a rail going down into the hot tub?
Well, that's what I was just mentioning. So I have it highlighted here that we are exploring the cost of it. And so when I have that figure, we'll be doing that install as long as it's viable. We have to obviously do like the measurements and stuff, but I do have it indicated here as us exploring it.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. One new piece that I wanted to bring to your attention, you'll notice on item 9, we are dishing out $3,000 for the Senior Center Without Walls program. So this is an initiative that we actually started up with Community Services last year. It was quite successful. And basically what this provides is programming for seniors who are not able to leave their homes. So they're able to call in, they run different programs such as bingo or trivia. And we had exponential growth in this area actually come COVID, because people are obviously those with immune deficiencies or anything are quite scared to be able to go outside. So we've allocated quite a bit in order to provide more programming during COVID to ensure that seniors with disabilities or those just who are homebound are able to participate in recreation programs and stay active mentally. So that's one new addition that we put in there, but everything else would be the same in terms of what we've talked about in the past. So any questions on this is just the operating accessibility budget, not our capital. Okay, so I'm not hearing any questions. So I'm going to take that as the assumption that I am okay based on the request from March from Councillor to go ahead with the purchase of the tent project, the sensory tent project, sorry. And so I will be going ahead with those items during the summer months. So that way we can prepare them for whenever we have our future events open up to the public and our community.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Motion received as information. Sorry, Joanne?
It's all right. That wasn't to do with that. It's something else.
Okay.
All right. Motion to receive as information. Anyone?
Matthew.
Matthew? Seconder?
Rochelle.
Rochelle? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Motion carried. Item 7. Adjournment.
Could I ask a question before we adjourn?
Sure.
So, yeah, I was going to say jump in. Go ahead.
It's just a personal thing because I'm not on the internet. When they send out the information to me, I have a contact for internet and I have a contact for the building of the town, which I know off by heart anyway. But if I needed to call, today I thought there was a possibility I was going up to the hospital and staying in. But if I needed to contact somebody, I don't have another contact number that I can get anybody because the building's closed down.
So I got your voicemail earlier, Joanne. You indicated to me that you mentioned that you might not be able to come in there. So I did receive your voicemail. You left it off as you were just letting me know. So I didn't get a chance to get back to you just because it was a little bit later in the day. But you did get to me. And so any staff members that you're reaching out to are able to, because we're all working remotely right now and the facilities are closed, staff members are able to connect to their voicemails and read them. So
okay.
I did receive it and most should be able to as well. And some staff members that are-
Whether I should phone John or phone yourself or something like that to let the committee know, that's what I was thinking, so.
Yep. So I got your message earlier today. It worked.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. So I think we're good. John?
Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Anyone?
Haley.
Haley?
Haley.
Thanks for coming in, Haley. And a seconder?
I'll second it.
Oh, Max had his hand up.
Okay.
All in favor? I guess I
Aye.
enjoy the summer. Everyone be safe. Stay away from people. Do what you got to do and enjoy the summer months at home.
Thank you, John. And I will, as normal, I'll keep in touch with all of you guys through email on any priority items that kind of come through. The items that we've talked about today, I will communicate with the team as email. And then, like I was saying, Matt, I'm happy to sit down and we can further discuss Earl Stewart, just so it's totally on me, just so I get what you're talking about. And then we can address that as well for you.
I just sent you an email now.
You're the best.